Spring. Sorry I've been away for a long time. I had an interview that I'm going to post here to the channel with a great guy. His channel is called The Mighty Filbert. He's a really, really great guy. Go over to his channel, like his channel, subscribe to his channel. Do the same for me while we're at it. Down in my description box, you'll see my email. If you want to talk about your deconstruction journey, please, I'd love to speak with you. Or if you're deconstructing and you want support through that, I'd also be willing to offer my support to you too. But just want to let you know that the reason why I've been gone for the past couple of days is because my vehicle, I've been deep into my vehicle doing a timing chain, and so that's about a 3-day process. So also, the reason why I haven't posted as many videos is because the last video where I had all that editing done, I didn't realize how difficult editing was until I got 3 to 4 days into it. And I was like, oh my God, this 10-minute video is going to take me 4 to 5 days just to do the editing. So I obviously need an editor, but we need money for that, and that's what I'm working on. So for today, we have got evangelical prosecution. Hold on, what is it? Evangelical prosecution is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh my God, this is what I've been touting. So I do want to do a react to this video. I have not watched this video. I was going to watch this video. I stopped myself because I was like, no, we have to go into this together. So let's get into it.
Growing up in the answers to life's greatest questions that I knew who God. Growing up in the evangelical church, I was taught that to be a Christian was to set yourself apart from the rest of the world, and that those who professed Jesus would be shamed and mocked and persecuted and sometimes even killed just for having faith. And the Bible teaches that those who are persecuted for their faith, for their righteousness in God, will be blessed. And that true followers of Jesus will always be persecuted by the world. And evangelicals don't really realize that.
Really quick, just on this, growing up in my church, one of the things that that they used to tout from the pulpit is, I wonder how many here today, if somebody put a gun to your head and threatened to take your life away from you, how many people are going to profess that they are Christians, right? Like that entire thing that any day the government's going to walk in and they're going to put a gun to your head and you're going to have to show that you're a Christian. Are you going to take a bullet in the name of your faith and be a martyr, or like, oh God. Let's get
this is less a divine biblical prophecy and more of a self-fulfilling prophecy based on the teachings and behaviors coming from the evangelical church. And I have to say that I have lived on both sides of the fence. I have been a deeply devoted fundamentalist evangelical Christian, and I have also spent a lot of time as a very open atheist. And I never felt as persecuted as a Christian as I now do as an atheist. And I don't even know that I'm persecuted as an atheist. I think people just don't like it because they don't understand it. But what's interesting is that as a Christian, when I thought that I was
I will just make this quick remark. We live on a planet with many perspectives. Any perspective that you have, you're going to be persecuted for your beliefs. It's just kind of the realm of what we deal with, right? It doesn't matter how strong you try to make your argument. There is going to be people out there who refuse to accept facts, right? It was funny. I saw this video online that was so accurate, but you know, there's a paper that even in the face of facts, people tend to ignore facts and stick to their beliefs. And there's a person who was arguing that because he was like, no, if a person is shown factual data, then they will change their beliefs. And then he was presented this paper that shows that no, for the most part, people tend to stick to their beliefs. And he was like, nah, I disagree. I'm sticking to the belief that when shown facts, people change their mind, which is just a brilliant, it was just like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. But yeah, I mean, we live in a place with a ton of different beliefs in this culture itself. If you start running around the planet, you start to interact with so many different cultures and so many different belief systems. And so, take it with a grain of salt. The reality is that, there's people who believe that the earth is flat, and in the face of data, they will still stick to their guns that the earth is flat. There's people who believe that Christianity is the only way to get to Jesus or to get to God, right? Or to get to heaven, whatever, and that hell is real. And doesn't matter what you present to them. It doesn't even matter if you present their own Bible, their own book to them. They're still going to ignore that and stick to their beliefs. There's a verse, John 8, what is it? It's this beautiful idea that Jesus is calling the Old Testament God the devil. It's oh man, what is it? John 8:55 or something. John 8:43. Somewhere in the 40s. But essentially it's whenever Jesus is arguing with the Pharisees, and he's actively telling the Pharisees that they are serving the God of wickedness, right? Well, who are the Pharisees serving if not Yahweh, right? So
being persecuted, what was really happening is people were just responding to my own behavior. And my behavior was rooted in the teachings that I was receiving at the church that told me that I had all of the answers to life's greatest questions, that I knew who God was, I know where I'm going in the afterlife, that I am on the only right path that there is to take in this life. And anyone who doesn't agree with my personal ideologies, they are on the wrong path. And not only are they living life in the wrong way, but they're doing so in such a way that is so depraved that it deserves eternal punishment in hell.
Okay, I'm going to stop the video, not the video. I'm going to stop the recording just here to just really quick bring up the whole thing. John 8:44. So it says, Jesus said unto them, well, starting at verse 42, Jesus said to, if God were your father, ye would love me, for I proceeded forth and came from God. Neither came I of myself, but he sent me. Why do ye not understand my speech, even because ye cannot hear my word? Ye are the my favorite part. He's talking to the Pharisees, okay, to the Jewish people, the people who've been worshiping, obeying Moses' law, worshiping Yahweh, the whole thing, right? He says, ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. But think about that. He is a murderer from the beginning. My question to you is, how many people in the Bible has Satan murdered versus God? Right? Think about that. Yahweh in the Old Testament. How many people has Yahweh murdered? Murder. Gore. What is it from Parks and Rec? Murder. I forget her name. April. Yeah. But think about that, right? So here we have Jesus telling the Pharisees that they're worshiping the devil, right? The Pharisees aren't worshiping the devil. They're very aware of the devil, and they're making it a point to worship and follow the rules and laws of Yahweh. And here Jesus is telling them that their God is the devil and has been a murderer from the beginning. That's fun. All right, back to the video.
And they are victims of the indoctrination that has put them in a situation where they have to do that in order to feel secure and feel like they are surviving. And I remember being a Christian, and I would say such hateful things that I didn't realize were hateful because I believed that they were true, and I just thought, well, if it's the truth, I'm going to say it, because that's what I was taught. And people would respond, and they wouldn't like that very much. They would call me out on that. I've upset a non-Christian with the truth, and the truth will set you free. So maybe I planted a seed, and one day they'll wake up and they'll thank me for helping them out. And when I was in youth group, and I was really, really deep in the sauce, I would invite my atheist friends to come to youth group and watch these crazy evangelical indoctrination videos and go through these services where they were basically told the whole time that they were going to hell. And a lot of the times they would tell me, hey, this isn't for me, but I respect you. And they would be incredibly respectful of me as a person and my personal beliefs. They would just choose not to participate in it. And even I thought that was a form of persecution, which is just so bizarre that somebody else choosing their own path and deciding that my beliefs aren't for them would be considered an attack on me and my faith. But when you're a Christian, you perceive anything against your beliefs as an attack on your faith, because we are living in a world of spiritual warfare. It is a world of black and white, of good and bad, where Satan and God and all of their little minions are constantly fighting one another and trying.
One thing I want to say very quickly is that in general, anybody, when you disagree with a person, subconsciously, that person is going to take it as a small attack toward their belief, right? And so I wouldn't get so upset at this idea, or I wouldn't fault the Christians for feeling in this way or reacting in this way, just because, essentially what you do is, when you're sharing something that you believe, is you tell a person, this is what I believe to be true. And when they don't accept it, what it is it's planting a seed in you of, maybe there's something in your thing, or maybe there's something in your belief system that doesn't make sense, or something like that. And so whenever a person doesn't accept your belief system, all it does is poke a little hole at you to say, go back and look at your belief system, right? And so whenever you don't accept Christianity, that's exactly what you're doing to a person, is you're basically saying, I've already been there, I've already done that, and I've rejected that. What that does to them is, it's basically an attack of, hey, you should research this more yourself. Which, to be frank, Christians tend to take everything as an attack by the devil, right? Because they live in that world. That's their perception of everything, is that it is only the devil who's doing something, right? If I decide to, not wake up, not go work, not go do anything, and just, wait until my, everything falls apart in my life, it's the work of the devil. No, it's not the work of the devil. You did that, right? For instance, if you lost your job, right? So let's be clear about why you lost your job. A lot of people tend not to see how they act. Whenever I was selling my business and going through kind of the handing over process, one of the people involved was not aware of the way that they spoke, the way that it came across. And so they were often running into issues with, people, miscommunication, having issues, emotional issues, maybe somebody's getting upset, whatever. But it's just because they didn't perceive the way that they were speaking to other people, right? You have to flip the camera on yourself and look at yourself in the mirror before you make a judgment of another person. My dad is a perfect example of this. This guy loves to yell. He's very aggressive. This is why I don't work with him anymore. Thank God I haven't worked with him in the last 15 years. But, or 12, 14, I don't know. The reality is, his thing is yell first and ask questions later. And so whenever I tell him, I'm like, hey, you don't have to be that mean. I'm not being mean. I'm like, yeah, you're being mean. I'm not being mean. I was just telling him what to do. And I was like, you were screaming at him what to do. I'm not screaming at him what to do. So one day I decided to record him. I was just hanging out, doing my thing. He was working with his worker, and then he starts. I pull out my phone, I start recording. And I just record his face, I record everything. And then whenever he's done, I go back, and later, not in front of his worker, that's between him and his worker, but later I walk up to him and I'm like, look, this is what you look like. And he goes, oh my God, I'm mean. I'm like, yeah, dude, you're pretty mean. So, but that's just because we tend not to, and in Christianity in general, we tend not to take accountability for what we bring to the table, for what we're doing, for how we're acting, things like that.
Trying to pull us away. And so when you have this perspective of a world where everything is a battle, everything is a fight, there is so much spiritual warfare going on all around you, it's very easy to perceive every single bit of negative attention toward you as part of that battle. It's very dramatic. And so as a Christian, I was never really persecuted, but when I left Christianity, all of the people that told me the world would discriminate against me and shame me, those people were the ones that discriminated against me and shamed me for my own path, for choosing my own way in life and not clinging to these ideologies anymore. And they talked behind my back and they said things to me that were really unkind. They treated me in really disrespectful ways. And posting content here on YouTube and making deconstruction content, I get hundreds, thousands of comments from Christians who were very angry that I am even sharing my thoughts about the Bible, sharing my thoughts about God. No matter how nice I am about it, no matter how much compassion I try to bring to the conversation, to these very difficult, divisive conversations, there are still people who behave in the way that evangelicals told me the world would behave toward me when I was a Christian, but they're the Christians and I'm not, and they are engaging in that exact behavior that I was warned about growing up in the church. And they will not see that as persecution. They will see it as trying to save me. Or they'll see it as responding to evil, because a lot of them believe that I am literally being led by Satan and that I am evil. And so they don't feel bad about pointing their fingers and saying really
oh my God, being led by Satan is the craziest thing. You know, it's funny because that's an entire rabbit hole. But you know, read the Old Testament, right? Just read the thing, you know. You see so much, you see so many things that just don't make sense. If you look outside the Bible, there's books outside the Bible that kind of reflect on the idea of what hell is and all this kind of stuff. And there's a bunch of Gnostic texts and people who go over Gnostic texts. Morg Official is a channel. He goes over all the Gnostic texts in the Nag Hammadi and outside the Nag Hammadi. Nag Hammadi being what they found in Egypt back in the 1940s. You know, they dug up this clay jar full of manuscripts and things like that, inside of one of which was the Book of Thomas, where Jesus paints a completely different picture of what salvation is, what you know, what heaven is, all this kind of stuff. And so, but one comment I did want to make is that persecution is normal. Right? If you are in a yard with a fence, there is going to be people shouting over the fence. That's what it comes down to, right? You put two dogs and you throw a fence between the two dogs. What happens? The dogs start barking at each other. You take the fence away, then suddenly the two dogs shut up. You know? but no, that's just the truth, because, like I said, you know, between atheist and Christianity, it doesn't matter if you're persecuted in Christianity. Step out of Christianity, you'll soon find you're persecuted by Christians, right? If you're any sort of denomination, any sort of belief. I hate to bring up the whole flat Earth thing again, but you know, if you believe in a flat Earth perspective, anybody who doesn't, you're going to be seen as, you know, you're going to feel persecuted by him, and vice versa, right? And it's kind of funny, but it's a human condition, because at the end of the day, you know, we live on a planet where man has not figured out, no matter all the technology that we have, all the resources that we have, man has not figured out how to live with each other, how to be with each other, right? We've got wars popping off in Europe. We've got wars, you know, potentially popping off in Asia. We had a potential war popping off in the United States if it wasn't for everybody in the U.S., all the American citizens being pissed off at the idea that the United States is going to go on an imperial conquest, because have we not moved past that shit, right? And so, but because it's coming up, what does that tell you? No, we haven't, right? It's coming back up again. So no, we haven't moved past that shit, and so we're dealing with it again. So anyways, really quick, guys, like and subscribe. Hope you're enjoying the video. If you want to reach out to me, the Desert Spring 111@gmail.com. If you want to be a part of the show, if you want to have a chat about your deconstruction story, I'd love to kind of go deep into it. But at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do here, is just trying to support people as they walk away from Christianity into whatever it is that they want to believe. Now, of course, the name of the channel is the Desert Spring, and that's just because my view of it is that anybody at any point in time can just tap into the spring that is God, that is consciousness, that is whatever it is, and that is free and open access to it. But that religion tries to put a fence around it to maintain that you have to do their rules, do their thing in order to have access to it. So that was one of the things that we went into in the interview with Filbert. If you should go watch that video. I'll post the video. I'm not going to make any edits to it because I'm too busy, but it was a great interview. I really enjoyed being on his show. And we kind of he left me with so many questions that I was like, oh my God, I love this. Now I've got things to ponder, you know? But anyways, so, yeah, we live on a world where there's fences, and as long as there's fences, there's going to be crap thrown over the fences, right? Now, I'm not saying that we should completely take off all the fences and all of a sudden every country has open borders. That's not what I'm saying by any means. What I'm saying is that we have these perceptions of things that separate us, right? The color of my skin, my religious belief, my political affiliations. We don't see these as natural differences in a population. We see these as separations, right? You are Christian, I am not. There's this fence. You are this, I am this. There's this fence, right? And as long as there's a fence, we're going to be throwing shit over the fence, right? So that's just the first thought of persecution, right? So just because you move away from Christianity, no, you're still going to be persecuted. Anything that you do in life, you're going to be persecuted. If you decide to stand up for a person who's getting mistreated, let's say you're at a grocery store and a clerk is getting yelled at by a customer, and it's not in the reason goes to show that the customer is not in the right, and you stand up for the clerk. Guess what? The customer is now going to have you as a new target. It is just how we operate,
Kind things or making assumptions about me, because why are you going to feel bad about pointing your fingers at Satan and telling Satan exactly what you think of him? And I'll watch the comments and watch how sometimes ex-Christians or atheists might respond, and they might get kind of snarky or very pointed with their responses. And then the Christian is defending themselves and they're going back and forth. And I'm sure the Christian at the end of the conversation is walking away feeling like, I did a good thing. That person is angry. I've offended people in the name of...
Oh my God, if we haven't had the videos, if you haven't seen the video, go into the channel and go check that out. It's the video of the Mormons and the pastor, then the Mormons and the Jehovah's Witness, and it's both of them screaming at each other, saying that they've hoped that they've planted seeds of truth in each other. It's like, oh my God.
Of Jesus. And so now Jesus is happy with what I've done. I am more godly. And it's really hard to break people from that, because if somebody truly believes that they are living for God, and that is being validated all of the time by the fact that people are so offended by what they're doing, it's really hard for that person to break free from that mindset and that mentality that keeps them engaging in that behavior. And this overlaps with the current right wing in America, and how those on the right are so quick to pretend as though they are the ones being persecuted by society.
So I do want to make this, there was a video that I saw on now I try to stay away from politics and stuff like that, but the truth of the reality is that religion and politics, unfortunately in the United States, go hand in hand, because you have a party that, well, first of all, you only have two parties, right? There's a bunch of different parties, but at the end of the day, everybody either votes Republican or Democrat. And so there's only two parties, and a third party candidate tends to be just a way to siphon off votes. And so we don't really have an election where there's a bunch of different parties. Like in Europe, they have elections where there's a bunch of different parties. And so just because you have one kind of belief in some whatever reason, you believe in, lower taxes or something like that. In the United States, you'd be like, oh, lower taxes? Well, you must be for the Republican Party. You must be, and it's just like, not necessarily. Maybe I'm Democratic, but I'm a business owner, right? And so but that's just the country that we live in, or the people in the United States. I know some people watch from Europe, but in the United States, this is just kind of the shit we got to deal with. Like the current president.
Society, they are the ones that are being marginalized, when they're the ones going out into the world pointing their fingers at everyone around them and discriminating against them and supporting policies that allow the government to discriminate against them. And it is so clear that this persecution complex has carried from the evangelical churches into the MAGA movement, into the right wing of America, and how they point their fingers at everyone else and they say terrible things and they engage.
I saw a video the other day that basically said that, the reason Christians don't have to be Republican, but a Christian cannot support a party that doesn't align with the Bible, or it doesn't align with every single thing in the Bible, which is hilarious. I do want to make a reaction to that video, but the idea was that because the Democrats are because the Democrats are in support of abortion, right, and women's rights and all kind of the liberal things, because they're in support of these ideologies that go against what the Bible teaches, if you are Christian and you're voting Democrat, then you are going against your own religion. That's the ideology that brings up. So if you guys are there in Europe, we're sorry. No, but for real, in the United States in general, that is a prevalent. Now, I don't get me wrong. I know that there are a bunch of democratic Christians out there. I know there are millions of them out there. I get it, but it's just a video that popped up on my feed of why Christians, literally the I want to say the title of the video is why Christians should never vote Democrat. And I was like, what in the world? And the whole premise of the video was that if anything that a party stands for goes against what the Bible teaches, then you shouldn't vote for that party. And I'm like, okay, well then what about Jesus saying, love your neighbor as you love yourself and turn the other cheek and all these other things? So we could go on and on and on about that, but we're not going to because we're trying to stay away from politics. Fucking shit.
And discrimination and hateful rhetoric against all kinds of groups of people, and then act like we're the ones who have the audacity to speak out against that, to try to defend those that are being marginalized by that group. And then when they engage in this discriminatory behavior and their dear leader at the top praises it and does the exact same thing, they feel validated, just like I did in the church. When people would come at me, I would feel validated that God was on my side. They feel validated that Trump is on their side whenever the leftists get enraged and mad and fight back. When they own the libs and the libs get upset, Trump and the regime validate that persecution, and now they feel like they have won, like they are on the winning side, the right side, the godly side. And then the cycle just continues because, again, it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. They want to be persecuted. They want to be victims because the victimhood is what validates their position as the one who is in the right. And if they are not victims, they might not be in the right. And so they have to get themselves into that victimhood, and they have to perpetuate the behaviors that continue placing them in that perceived victimhood, when really they're just being assholes, and everyone is responding to them being an asshole. And
I do want to make a small note on that, just the idea of victimhood. Christianity teaches you that your life is going to be hard and difficult and you're going to suffer as a Christian. That's basically the entire thing, right? Because the whole thing about Christianity is fighting against the flesh, fighting against your desires, fighting against the desire to be rich, fighting against the desire to have sex, fighting against the desire to do whatever, right? You're fighting against these worldly desires because you're just such a worldly being, right? And so because of that, you get a whole bunch of people repressing a whole bunch of stuff, and you get these really dark things that happen just because of all of these really, really repressed things. So, you can look at Trump and Epstein and see plenty of the what happens whenever darkness comes out to play, right? It's pretty gross, but
the difference between this perceived persecution as an evangelical and the discrimination that I receive now as an atheist or an ex-Christian is that the persecution when I was a Christian was about my own behaviors. It was a response to my behaviors and how I was treating other people. But now it has nothing to do with my behavior when people discriminate against me because of a label that I hold or what I believe in or don't believe in. It is not about my behavior. It doesn't matter how nice I am or compassionate I am in my approach. It is all about what I believe, what I think. And the discrimination happens because I'm not on their identifying side. It is not a response to me at all. It is a frustration that I am not like them. And it feels like an attack on them. And then they enjoy that attack because it validates their righteousness. And I just think it's important that we keep that at the front of, and they are victims of the indoctrination. And they are victims of the indoctrination that has put them in a situation where they have to do that in order to feel secure and feel like they are surviving. And they are victims of the indoctrination that has put them in a situation where they have to do that.
I hope you stuck around through that. Anyways, all I was gonna say is I was gonna end the video there. The one thing that I do want to mention that
in order to feel secure.
There we go. I don't like pausing people on an ugly face. So one of the things I did want to mention is that joy that Christians get from the fight. As long as you're extracting joy from a fight, there will always be fighting. keep that in mind. It doesn't matter if you're Christian. It doesn't matter if you're spiritual. It doesn't matter if you're atheist. It doesn't matter what side of the fence, what thought form you have. As long as you're extracting joy from the fight, there will always be fighting, right? And that just exists throughout every, it's a part of being human, sure, because of the competitiveness that probably started off with reproduction, right? But in general, as long as you are listening in on somebody's argument and having fun and siding in with a person's argument and extracting the tea and taking sides and all this kind of stuff, you're contributing to the problem that there's a lot of fighting going on in the world, right? And so, yeah, Christians are not above that. We just did a couple of videos a couple weeks ago, where we saw a pastor who claimed that Jesus took away my abusive tendencies, but then he rechanneled his abusiveness into posting arguments onto YouTube with people that he had regarding Christianity. So did Jesus really take away his abusiveness? Or in a way of trying to fit in with his religion, he translated his abusiveness from being abusive to a spouse to being abusive to random people in public who disagreed with his opinion, right? So did he actually change, right? So anyways, that's where I'm going to end the video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And also reach out to me, Desert Spring 111, if you'd like to be have an interview and talk about deconstruction and stuff. So, okay, guys, that's going to be the end. I'll leave it there, and we'll see you in the next one.